Okay, welcome to the Blue Garden. This is Jay, and we're going to be talking about brewing tea, compost tea. All right, here we are on my blueberries. You can see how nice they are. The sun is up crazy. Look at the thermometer. That's pretty hot. It's kind of way up there, about, can't see it, but it's about 100. But you can see how the shade screen here does a good job, and you can see how my blueberries are not getting burned, sunburned. Here you have new growth. See that? So see all that new growth. All right, so let's talk about, there's a bumblebee back there trying to attack me. See it on the ground? All right, compost tea. There it is. All right, compost tea. Huh, that's bumblebee. All right, compost tea. This is where you get your compost. You can see how it's all made up. Look at it. There's some potatoes and squash in there. And I'm pretty sure your compost might be the same. See, these are all grape leaves. And you have some branches right there. You know, it's just everything we put in there. So let's talk about compost tea. Now, in the 80s, when computers started to come out, there was a saying called garbage in, garbage out. Meaning, whatever you put in the computer, that's what you were going to get out. All right, compost tea is the same thing. You just saw my compost over there. And the proper way to do compost is the percentage. You got to have 10% of green, nitrogen. The grass clippings is a great source of nitrogen. Then you got to have 10% of brown or carbon, and that would be your paper, your branches, this stuff here. You know, this branches. This is all carbon. You use paper. And then you have your other percentage of water and air. Okay, so you can see here how my compost, and I'm pretty sure it's typical to everybody. You just put in there what you have. Food scraps. Whatever clippings you get from the garden. I don't have a lot of grass. I don't have any, well, very little grass. So my compost sometimes lacks nitrogen. All right. So I'm pretty sure there's typical other people, the same thing. So compost tea, like I said, garbage in, garbage out. On the computer, what you put in the compost, that's what you get out. Way in the bottom, down here. Right here. Alright, so that's what you compost. So that's what you put in your tea. Now, here's where it starts. These recipes, in the internet and all that stuff. What are you putting in your compost bin? Is what you're going to get out in your tea. I just tell you here, mine is not balanced. It's not correct because I'm lacking a lot of nitrogen because I don't have a lot of grass clippings. But I have to tell you for a fact, this has been sitting here for maybe 5 years. Have I used it? Only one time. Well, to make compost tea. That's when I didn't know. But now I know. I used to use that stuff, and did it work? Like I said, compost tea comes in 4 categories. One is okay. And of course, these are my categories. They're not standard categories. They're mine. Okay, good, best, and ultimate. Okay? So, like I said, where is your compost coming from that you're putting in there? Now, there's several ways, well, really 2 ways. Back in the 60s, they started out this composting by growing their marijuana. And the way they did it is they put the compost in water. They're trying to make liquid fertilizer. And they found they just get the compost out of the bin and put it in still water, no bubbles, nothing, just leave it there. And it liquefied and it turned into compost. And they were putting it on their marijuana plants. And it worked. You know, it was okay. And then somebody, when they put in their water cans, this is what they call a water can, it would clog up their hose. So some guy, when he put his compost tea in there, his compost in there, he starts to stir it with a stick. He stirred it, and it spun around, and it created oxygen in there. And the reason he was stirring it, because he would stir it and then scoop his hand like that, and then all the debris would fly out. He would scoop it out and throw it out, scoop it out. So that's why he would stir it and then scoop it out. Just catch it and scoop out all the loose particles, the little branches that didn't decompose. So he would stay with the liquid. That way, when he stuck his water can in there, when he stuck this in it, it would not clog up his hose. But guess what? He found out this stuff worked better than his first batch. Just throwing it in there and leaving it. That's what he called stew. You just sits there, stew, it's stewing. But the second time he started stirring, what happened when he stirred it? He created oxygen. He created air in there, and he activated more microbes. And that way, when he used that second batch, it worked better than his first one. So it was good. And then he realized, well, if I put more oxygen in there, it will line all the microbes. So then they got an aquarium pump. Aquarium pump, you get it from any kind of fish tank. And some of you don't know, you know, right there, they get the aquarium pump and the little bubblers that come with the fish tank. He put it in there, or something like this. And he put his compost in there, and guess what? Well, it didn't tire him out by spinning it, because now it could run all day. And it came out better. It was better than okay. And it was good, better than good. And it's the best he could do. And it was best when he poured it onto his plants. So they realized it. And then over the time, the creation of compost tea and tea recipe and brewing have all created and gone up. But still, there's a lot of recipe out there that use basically the same thing. They use compost, what I show you over there, or they use worm castings. Alright, let's talk about worm castings. A lot of people grow worms, and what do? What do they feed the worms? The worms are like pets. They feed the worms food scraps and whatever other stuff they have available. Look at that big spider there. Boy, it's just crazy garden here, huh? Looks like it needs some of that what do you call that? Secret sauce. Anyways, I was saying, what are you feeding your worms? Because what your worms eat is what the worm's gonna poop. And if your worms are pooping what they're eating, what are you feeding your worms? Because that's the kind of compost tea that you're gonna get. Alright? And a lot of people, they buy worm castings and they don't know where they're getting it from, because these manufacturers, they're not interested in results and good stuff for your garden. They're interested in making money, packaging, shipping, and receiving their checks. That's what they're interested. So it's very important that you know where your source is coming from. Okay, that's the difference between those recipes you see on the internet. All right, so let's talk about worm castings here. This is what I use. This is a company that has its own worm farm, and they feed their worms quality food. They feed on a lot of kelp, rock dust, and all these minerals. They don't feed them food scraps. They don't feed them, garbage. So these worms are eating high quality grain, yeast, and minerals. The minerals come in rock dust, kelp, and the worms are eating the stuff, and guess what? The worms poop out. Where are they pooping out? They're pooping out quality compost or quality castings. Because what they're eating is good, and what they're pooping out is good. Alright, so that's the difference between those guys you see on the internet making these compost tea, and what I'm doing is I'm using quality stuff. This is all source, no added chemicals. See, this guy's registered organic input material. There's the abbreviation. So these worm castings are high quality. All right, that's the difference between my recipe and those that you see on the internet and passed down. Okay, so the ones on the internet, they use worm castings, something like this, and they get it from whatever source or their own source of worm castings, and they add molasses for the sugar. All right, let's talk about molasses and sugar. Why we put molasses and sugar in our compost tea. All right, the sugar is to generate and liven up the microbes in the tea from the compost or the worm casting. Is to activate, sort of like you know how you on Halloween your kids go out trick-or-treating and get all the candy. Well, what happens, what's the first thing you tell them? Don't eat the candy. Okay, and you tell them for two reasons. One, you want to make sure the candy is safe, and the second, you don't want them eating all that candy and becoming so hyper that at nighttime they won't be able to sleep because they're all excited or all pumped up on sugar. You know how sugar makes you. All right, so that's why we use sugar or molasses in our compost tea. Now, too much sugar, what happens? You know what happens if you have kids or if you eat a lot of sugar. You're not gonna get diabetic, you're gonna get worse. You know what's going to happen. You're not be all climbing the walls all night. You're not going to be able to sleep. You're not going to be able to do nothing. So, I seen on the internet some of these recipes. Look, they sell these things. I don't know why people are so lazy that they don't use them. It calls for 1 teaspoon of molasses per 5 gallons, and guess how they measure it? They just pour it. They think more is better. Now, you know better if you had little kids. If you get one candy, you get one candy. You don't get one the whole pack of candy. More is not better. And you've seen that. I know if you watch any kind of videos on YouTube, they're making compost tea, you see them just pour it in there, just eyeball it. You know. So you know what's happening to their microbes. Their microbes are young. You know, these microbes, you need a microscope to see them. And I hope you guys watched the first part of the video I'm asking for help in getting a microscope. So I have to do analysis in the soil and in the tea to find these microbes and see how many we had. And I also can help you guys do the same. You send me a little package in the mail with your soil, and I can analyze it and show video of what you have in your soil. It's a two-way street. We both help each other. All right, so these sugars, they just pour it in there, and these microbes are so tiny and small. What happens when you get an overdose of sugar? Well, you get all hyped up and, you know, have a heart attack and croak, you know. So, same thing happens with your microbes. So instead of having hundreds of microbes, you're going to end up with a few, 20, 30, 40, 50, I don't know, but because the other ones have been overloaded with sugar. All right. Now, there's some people that, like I said, long as your tea, what you're brewing, is oxygenated, which is called aerobic. It has with oxygen. When it goes anaerobic without oxygen, that's when the compost tea is bad, and you should not use it when it smells awful. That's a clean sign of knowing if your compost tea is good or bad, other than inspecting it with a microscope. Again, with a microscope, I need your help. Don't forget, please. All right, so some of these people just use compost tea, compost, or they use worm castings and molasses. Those two things. And that's how they make their compost tea. All right, it's okay. It isn't great. It isn't good. It isn't best. And sure, it's not the ultimate, but it's okay. And then there's some people that will use the same thing. Either compost, worm casting, and they take another step. They'll use liquid kelp. Now, I have all these items here because I use them. That's why I know about it. I'm not just going on the internet and reading what they're using, what they don't use, or what they should use, and I don't buy it, I don't have it. See, no. What I tell you, what I recommend is because I have experience in using all this stuff. All right, I just want you to know that. When I tell you buy a soil potting mix, it's because I have it, I use it, and I know it works. All right, so they use worm casting, compost, and they also use this humus liquid and this liquid kelp. What does this do? Well, it makes your compost tea better than okay and better than good. And you're right, it's best. All right, so you're up there. Because this is kelp. Kelp is good. And humic acid is great. And then they also sell it as a meal, kelp meal. See, it has true biotics. And they also sell it as a same thing, Premier kelp meal from Dr. Earth. See? I use all this stuff. I know about it, but I'm telling you, there's stuff way better. All right, so that's the next step. That some people, and I only know one person that's been using liquid kelp and humic acid with their worm castings, and she's doing a good job. But she could do better. I told her you could do better if you just do a little bit more. All right, so now let's start talking about my recipe, the ultimate. All right, I have it here. It's already mixed because I can't do this and hold the phone and do all this stuff. Like I said, I use a lot of these elements here, minerals, and my recipe is all organic. All right, all organic minerals. This is my compost tea. Now, I don't know if I should give you the percentage, but we'll see. Like I said, I use worm gold castings. This is what I use. I use the worm gold castings. I use humus wood chip compost. I use biochar. Okay, I'll give you the percentage because it sounds a little bit better. All right, let me start all over. The worm casting, I use 33% of worm casting. The humid wood chip compost, I use 33%. The biochar, I use 25% of biochar. If you don't know what biochar is, please look it up. It's like it's light, but it's not. It's almost like a charcoal. I use volcanic rock ash, also known as rock dust. I use 5% of that, 5% of C90 trace ocean minerals. Now this has a positive charge. I want you to remember that on the C90. It has a positive charge. Alright, and then I use this called an AG amino. It's a Bragg soy food yeast. And I use about 15% of that. Are you getting the picture of my minerals? I'm not using the store-bought thing. I'm using what Mother Nature has given, and you have to get it. These are all minerals, natural, organic mineral. I use soluble kelp powder. I don't use the liquid. The powder seems to work much better for the microorganisms than the liquid. All right, and I use about 15% of that. I use 15% yeast powder with vitamin B. You hear that one? I use yeast powder. Again, powder. I don't use liquids or none of this stuff. With vitamin B. 15%. Then I use 15% kelp meal. You saw the box over there. Now here, I don't use molasses. Remember, molasses is a liquid. I use 15% evaporated cane juice crystals. They're easier to digest and more controllable for the organisms to get them, because the crystal has to dilute in the water brewing. So that means the microbes that are being born and populating do not get an overdose like you do with the liquid molasses. It's a granule, it's crystal, it's slow release. So the microbes do not get all jacked up on sugar rush. Alright, and then I use about 15% soybean meal. Alright, and then I use 15% a Humaplex water soluble humic acid powder. And then I use another 10% granulate humic acid crystal. Again, another crystal. So it dissolves slowly in the water. I use 5% alfalfa meal. And then I use 5%, it's called Calfer. It's a rock phosphate powder. And this, remember I told you the other one, the C90 has a positive charge? But this phosphate powder has a negative charge. Now that's very important. You got a positive and a negative charge working together, just like a car battery. The car battery works together with a negative and a positive charge. Can you see the science in this ultimate tea recipe? Now I have 5% lambonite and 5% green sand. All right, they're about 17 minerals that I use on my ultimate tea recipe. Can you see the difference between my recipe and the ones you see on the internet? I hope you can, because I just explained it all. I gave you percentage, and a lot of these are available. You just have to find them. It's not like they don't make it. This all comes naturally from the ground. And let me tell you a quick story. There was this couple, this is going way back in the 70s, late 70s. Couple went to Africa on a vacation, and they saw this pregnant woman. She was way out yonder in the fields, and she was eating dirt. They saw that she was eating dirt, and this couple, they were Americans. They saw her eating the dirt, and they felt bad and sorry for her. And they go, look at her. She's pregnant, probably doesn't have a husband, and she's so poor, she's eating dirt. And then there was a British guy came over and started explaining to an American couple, saying, she's not poor, she's smart. She lives in a third world country where they don't have pharmacies like they do in America. They don't see a doctor when they get pregnant and have prenatal care. The dirt she's eating has minerals in it. The minerals are calcium, iron, potassium. These are all found in the soil. Now, she does not have access, or they do not make multivitamin in Africa. So the best that she can do is eat the dirt, because the dirt has all these minerals. Now, who's the smart one and who's the one with egg in their face? Because they thought she was so poor and done eating dirt. And she was pregnant and smart enough to know that these multivitamins were in the minerals and they come from the soil. Alright, so that's where my compost tea comes from. It comes from the soil, from Mother Nature, and it goes back to the soil when I finish brewing. Alright, so let's get this going here. It's gonna be quite difficult because I only have 2 hands. And when I get this and set it up, and let me see if I can do this without dropping the phone. And hopefully I won't lose the phone in the water. Okay, I think you're there. I hope you can see that. And I think you can. Alright, now the way I designed this is you unscrew this tab here, you can see, look at that. Let's show you again. See that? That's going to mix it inside the tea bag. So here's the tea bag that clips. You have a strap with a carabiner. So when I put this in there, screw that back in there. See how that thread works so much better? You've probably seen one of these on the internet maybe, or they just slip it out there. Look at it, mine's just threaded. I tell you, I have an engineering background and it shows. Alright, so when I put this here, somehow I'm going to clamp it in there, wrap that around twice. Now look at that. Look at the way that thing has already darkened up so fast. I'm just breaking up all the clumps. So the clumps had air in there. So, hopefully you can see all this on camera because I'm not holding the camera, the phone. But, look at that. Get every single bit in there because that's all important. Alright. And like every single secret, I left one main ingredient out, which I'm going to keep a secret. I will share that ingredient to those that donate and help me out in buying my microscope that I would like to get. The main ingredient that makes this work so much better So I will share that and give the name and where to get it, where I get it at least. With those that donate and help me out, so I can also help you guys out by showing you how much microbes are in there, how much microbes are being created, being born. And you can see I use good quality minerals. I did not just use worm castings and molasses like you see on the internet. I just went through all the list of 17 minerals minus one last one that I said I'm gonna keep secret, only for those that donate to help me get that microscope. All right, I hope you guys have questions, because I want to answer those questions for you. And it's going to brew for 24 hours. It's 11:41. So tomorrow, Sunday at 11:41, we're going to spread it all around, and you're going to see the garden even bloom more. It's incredible. Just think of it. If you go out to a nice fancy dinner and you get a meal that's incredible, how does that make you feel inside? Well, these microbes are going to do the same thing for all these plants. You see these plants, the plants are all green. You didn't see any yellow leaves. You didn't see any damaged bark, branches. And I'm pretty sure I show you my whole garden from front to back, and you saw all the leaves. Look at all the leaves. Play it back. Tell me if you see any bad green leaves, or, because when you start learning about the soil, you start creating good, healthy plants. It doesn't matter what kind of plants. It's like right now the human race is going to Mars to live. Well, you want to live and colonize on Mars, but right now we're finding out how to create oxygen on Mars, you see? I'm not doing nothing special here that nobody doesn't know already. I'm just giving the plants what they needed, so they're not lacking. And that's why my leaves are not yellow. My leaves are not tipping brown at the tip. My fruit is not falling on the ground. So that's what I'm just saying here. And like I said, this is a great part of helping it, boosting it, helping all my plants. It all starts here in the soil with the microbes. The micro is the key that has been going on since day one, the creation. And that's what we're looking in Mars. We're looking for microbes, because if you find microbes, you're gonna find life. All right, this is Jay signing off on the Blue Garden. Until tomorrow, hopefully you will be generous and help me get that microscope so we can all help each other. All right, thank you very much.